Hello YouTube, Wes here checking in with finally a brand new episode of the Vinyl Survivor series. So if you're fairly new to the channel, you might not have seen a Vinyl Survivor series video before. So I'll go ahead and quickly explain what this sort of process is all about. And we'll start off with, I'm the type of person, I'm the type of music collector, music listener that I would much prefer to listen to a brand new album or a new to my ears album than go back into my collection and pull something out. Don't get me wrong, there are plenty of times where I like going into my collection and pulling out an album I love and playing it, but for the most part I really love just the discovery of new albums. And there's just so much music out there in the world that's been released, and there's always new music being made. So it's just such a expansive place to travel in, and expansive sort of thing to travel in is music, and I love almost all genres. So I'm really explorational in that, and I just love exploring music. And so I spend most of my time listening to things that are new to my ears. And so I have this process where I'll buy a bunch of albums over time. As you've seen my vinyl inbox series, I buy a lot of records, and I work through this process where I will, go through and give them a thorough cleaning if they're used records, or, at least a cursory cleaning if they're new records, run them through the spin clean or whatever. And I'll do a really serious deep dive, kind of serious listen to the albums. And this is kind of where I explain what I thought of each album, what I liked, what I didn't like, whether I'm going to be putting in my permanent collection or not, those sort of things. So that's what the Vinyl Survivor series is all about, is sort of documenting my travels in the music world and listening to albums, for the most part, things that I had never heard before. So with that being said, things have been changing a bit around here. The actual collection, which is behind me, has just been growing and growing and growing, and it's reached a point where I have to do some downsizing, and I've been going through a purge, and I'm listing those on my Discogs site, which you can go to, search for Deep Dish Records on Discogs, or you can just go to deepdishrecords.com. So if you're interested in picking up some stuff out of my collection, it's all going to be listed over there. Keep an eye on that. I'll be adding some new stuff there all the time. I'm always adding new stuff, that I find out in the wild that are, nice copies of albums I think people would like to have. And now I'm clearing out some of my collection that, at the time maybe I thought it was something I wanted to keep, but now I'm having a bit of a change of heart. I need to downsize a bit. I need to make some more space. So that's happening now. So check that out. So we're going to go ahead and get into this. If you haven't seen these before, I do 10 albums at a time, and let's go ahead and get into it. First one I have to share with you today is the 17th studio album by the country music artist Tammy Wynette, and this is Let's Get Together, 1977. So yeah, this is, female country artist Tammy Wynette. It's definitely getting into that sort of late 70s, early 80s, very highly produced kind of sound. It was a good record. I enjoyed it, but it was not necessarily something I felt like I needed to keep. It didn't really stand out in any way. It was just an overall kind of enjoyable album, nice one to put on, listen to, but not something I feel I need to revisit. So this one is not going to be staying in the collection, and it's on the Epic Orange label. So yeah, Tammy Wynette, Let's Stay Together, or Let's Get Together. Not going to be a keeper. Maybe if you're big into country music, this would be something you would enjoy more than I enjoyed listening to it, but I don't need to keep it. Okay, so the next 4 albums I have to share with you are all from the same artist. They're his first 4 albums, and that is the artist Les Dudex. And Les Dudex headlined the Florida Folk Festival several years back, so I picked up his first 4 albums on vinyl just to sort of get familiarized with his work and sort of get ready for the concert, so to speak. So yeah, Les Dudex is kind of, again, mid-70s, kind of does a kind of country rock, a little bit of other influences, blues and jazz are in there a little bit. Mostly kind of, that mid-70s kind of country rock sort of sound. Good guitarist. This is a self-titled debut from 1976. Really neat cover on this one. And these are going to be on the Columbia label. Next up, we have Les Dudek's second studio album from 1977. This is titled Say No More. And again, very, very similar. It's got that sort of slightly bluesy country rock sort of sound to it. Enjoyable, but not necessarily something I feel I need to revisit. And that's again on the Columbia label. Next one from 1978. This is Ghost Town Parade. It's the third studio album. This was probably my favorite of all four. You can tell by the cover it has a bit of more of a kind of fusiony jazz kind of feel to it. Definitely probably my favorite of the four, but none of them were really great. Just good solid rock, but not anything I need to revisit. So this was a good one, probably my favorite, but still not good enough to keep. And still on Columbia. This one had a printed inner sleeve, although it's not that interesting. This side's a little more interesting, just a photo and some liner notes. So those first three albums were just 1 year apart, and then this fourth album and his last one for a long time came out in 1981. So there was like a 3-year gap between the last one and this one. And this is Les Dudek's Gypsy Ride. Again, 1981 is the release year on this one. Back cover on this one. And there's the inner sleeve on this one. And then again on Columbia. So yeah, as I said, those were the first four sort of studio albums, and I don't believe he came out with another album until the 90s. Okay, next thing I have to share with you is the 11th US album from the Rolling Stones. This is their classic Sticky Fingers. Probably my favorite, definitely one of my favorites of their catalog. This has got Wild Horses on it. Just a great album by the Rolling Stones, and this is a nice original copy with the zipper, and it's all nice and intact and everything. So I was happy to have this, and yeah, I like this album a lot. As I said, this is probably one of my favorite, if not my favorite, Rolling Stones album. I really love the track Wild Horses. So that's the main reason for me loving this album so much. So the opening track is Brown Sugar, which is one of their even more well-known songs, but I don't like it as much as I like Wild Horses. But yeah, Moonlight Mile, Sister Morphine, I Got the Blues, Bitch. Classic yellow label. Stones released there. So yeah, this one is actually a keeper for me. This one's going to be going in my collection. As I said, it's my favorite, probably my favorite Rolling Stones album, and I do want to have this in the collection. So this one is the one and only one from this stack that's going to be staying in the collection. Rolling Stones Sticky Fingers. Okay, next up from 1972, we have Melanie's Garden in the City. So this is actually a compilation of throwaway tracks from her first few studio albums. This is on Buddha Records, and she had left Buddha Records at this time. So, they kind of had these leftover tracks. She had left the label, I guess probably because of some contractual obligations or whatnot. She agreed to allow them to release these as sort of a pseudo kind of album. But yeah, these are throwaway tracks, and it definitely feels that way when you listen to it. It's just okay. There's nothing that really stands out on here. I was hoping for more. It's got this cool die cut cover here and a Unipack kind of sleeve. But yeah, these are just kind of some throwaway tracks. Not bad, but not good either. So yeah, that was unfortunate for this one. As I said, this is on the Buddha label, and Really cool label. All right, next up from 1980, we have Sherbs with The Skill. This is their 8th album, so they've been around for a while at this point. 1980 is the year on this. Sherbs are kind of like a pop rock kind of group at this point. There is a bit of kind of keyboard in there, but not quite, it's not really in the synth pop realm. It's more of a rock with keyboard kind of sound. Enjoyable, definitely very of its time, maybe a little bit ahead of its time. This sound would become really popular in the mid 80s, what they're doing here with kind of a keyboard oriented rock kind of sound. And yeah, I enjoyed this, but the songs they all felt kind of samey to me, so I didn't like that about it. But it wasn't bad, but I didn't love it either. This has got a printed insert with lyrics and some artwork and liner notes on there. And it's on the Atco Records label. Okay, the next one was a complete blind buy for me. I saw this in the local Second and Charles in the dollar bin there, and it was kind of a newer release, from the 2010s, and this came out in 2011. Actually, was the year, and it just looked interesting. I sort of looked it up briefly and said, for $1, I'm going to give it a shot. So this is Rudkus with "We All Die at Work." So this is going to be kind of difficult to explain. It's kind of trip hoppy. It's kind of musique concrète almost, with its very repetitive kind of noise, experimental kind of sound. At first I really liked this, and then just after repeated listening, it didn't do much for me. After, at first I was like, oh, this is kind of cool sounding, but the more I listened to it, the less I liked it for some reason. So yeah, this is not a keeper. It was interesting at first, but it just didn't keep going for whatever reason. So yeah, Rudkus, "We All Die at Work." This is available on YouTube if you want to hear it. It's weird, but yeah, unfortunately not a keeper. Custom labels, kind of a private press kind of thing. Okay, and lastly for today, we have the 10th studio album by Arlo Guthrie, "The Power of Love" from 1981. Yeah, this was definitely a letdown. At this point in time, I guess the record company was trying to make, it's the early 80s. The folk scene had been long over at this point. And the record label was trying to turn him into almost like a Jimmy Buffett kind of thing, is what I'm getting a vibe from this, and it just did not work. This is not a good album at all. It has its moments. There's some deep tracks on here that are okay, but overall it's just they're trying to do this sort of, as I said, kind of a Jimmy Buffett kind of thing, and Arlo Guthrie is not Jimmy Buffett, so. Unfortunately, this is not a good album, not recommended, and definitely not a keeper for me. And that is on the Warner Brothers label. So that's going to do it for this episode of The Vinyl Survivor. Hope you enjoyed it. Thank you very much for watching. As I said, check out my Discog store for some stuff from the collection back here. Maybe a couple of these I just showed might end up in the Discog store as well. Thank you very much for watching. Stay tuned for more episodes. I'm going to be getting back into these. So remember, there is no bad music, only music you don't like, and we'll see you again next time. Cheers.